Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Network International Women's Day celebration event. I'm delighted to see so many of you here today for what I think is going to be a thoroughly interesting and inspiring morning. Before we do move on, though, I better just get a bit of housekeeping out the way, a bit of the boring stuff. I don't believe there are any fire alarm tests due today, so if you do hear an alarm, please don't hesitate to calmly make your way to the stairs and nearest exit. Disabled refuge points can be found in the lift, lobby and stairwell at the end of the corridor. The fire rendezvous point for a role building is Portland Villas, and in terms of facilities, there are several toilets available along the corridor that should be clearly signposted. Anyway, back to the event. If you don't already know me, my name's Laura Harris, and I am the current chair of the university's Staff Women's Network. Being chair is a voluntary role, and one I'm very, very passionate about. My normal day job is a quality assurance officer within Academic Registry. The Women's Network has around 200 members and is designed to be a safe space not only to discuss concerns and challenges we may face, but also a space for collaboration and support. Over the last year, we've put on various events, including lunch and learn sessions, which have been led by Women Network members and have been an excellent opportunity for self-development and skill sharing. We've also screened female-directed and led films in the Jill Craigie Cinema as well, and we've got one due in July. The Women's Network also provides the members with a voice at a strategic level at the university, because I act, as chair, I act as a representative to the network on the University Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And if any staff members here today are interested in joining or would like to find out a little bit more or even put themselves forward for co-chair, then please do come and find me in the informal networking session a bit later on this morning. The theme for this year's International Women's Day centres around inspiring inclusion. The campaign's objective is to encourage others to recognise and appreciate the importance of including women. Embracing women's inclusion means accepting their diverse backgrounds, in terms of race, age, ability, faith, body image, and how they identify. When women are motivated to participate, it cultivates a feeling of belonging, significance, and empowerment. But to formally introduce the event today and say a little bit more about how the university is developing and enhancing its inclusion, we have a message from our VC, Judith Petts.
I am delighted to say a few words to start our day of inspiring inclusion as part of International Women's Day 2024. The first IWD was held in 1911, focused then on women's rights to work, vote, be trained, to hold public office, and to end discrimination. In the United States, working conditions for women and labour legislation have been a focus of national activity since a 1908 rally, and these issues have continued over the years at the international level. Since 1911, IWD has developed and responded to the changing social and economic times through feminism, programmes to fix women to be more like men in the 1980s, to a focus on organisational development, then diversity and inclusion, and now the present day, where the world expects diversity, equity and inclusion for all. Equity recognises that each person has different circumstances and allocates appropriate resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. In 2024, stereotypes, discrimination and bias are more likely to be called out. Men's roles in society are more varied and gender roles far more fluid. We celebrate the presence of EDI and react to its absence. And on that note, and as I said when I introduced my first IWD at Plymouth 9 years ago, we should take a moment to think about the millions of women and girls around the world who this very day are trapped in conditions of war, invasion, drought, famine, oppression and poor health, where the relative luxury of our discussions and activities today are simply impossible. At the university, we've made important strides through our participation in Athena Swan in particular. This is a badge to be worn with pride, but our actions have to be ingrained in our culture and work. Virtual signalling is certainly neither productive nor impactful. We have just submitted for our institutional silver Athena Swan on the back of important success by schools across the university in achieving bronze and silver awards. The university has supported areas of good practice in EDI, which are now being recognised externally. For example, the Equality Pledges scheme developed by Athena Swan teams in the Faculty of Health, which has attracted interest from others in higher education across the UK. We are proud of our Girls into Geoscience initiative, which inspires female students to follow careers as geoscientists and was a 2023 Vice-Chancellor winner in the EDI category. This scheme, introduced by Plymouth in 2014, has now expanded to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, hosting over 1,000 girls each year. The initiative has won major awards from the Geological Society in recognition of its achievements in outreach, public engagement and education. While the STEM discussion of gender diversity is focused on women and girls, it is relevant to ask why some careers are not apparently equally attractive to men and boys as they are to women and girls. At the university, there are undergraduate courses where the majority of students are female. For example, all types of nursing have over 90% female students. We support all academic staff to develop their careers through academic promotion and have seen good progress here in recent years. Female staff successful in applying for promotion from lecturer to associate professor have increased from 44% to 53% and from 67% to 75% for promotion to professor between 2018 and 22. We have introduced a scheme to reinvigorate personal research careers for those returning from maternity, paternity and caring responsibilities. Looking forward, we are prioritising academic and professional services staff career development and improving our support for early career researchers. We have more to do on race equality. Underlying all of this and key to being truly inclusive for all, we continue to embed EDI into our organisational culture. So thank you for your engagement and enthusiasm today, and not least to Laura Harris and the Women's Staff Network for putting this event together. Have some great discussions and be inspired.
Many thanks to Judith for her important message there. It's encouraging to hear about the different initiatives here at the university, and I'm sure we'll have some great discussions today because we have the privilege of being joined by some really inspiring women. On the panel today, we have Anna, our University Academic Registrar, Shehany, a current medical student and president of the Student Action for Refugees. We're also joined by Melissa, a university alumnus and founder of Disgraceful magazine, and Liliane, the Human Relations Manager at Diversity Business Incubator and founder of Girls to Women. I don't want to talk for too much longer, but just to say that our lovely speakers will each deliver a brief talk about who they are and the work they're doing before we open up the floor for some questions and answers. The Q&A should be finished by about 11:15, where I'll just make a few closing remarks before we begin our informal networking session and workshops. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our guest speaker, Anna Sendall. Oh, I'm going to get that photograph off. That's a bit scary. Thank you, Laura. That was so brilliant to hear that. And it's so fantastic to see many people here. I'm absolutely delighted and honoured, genuinely honoured to be invited to speak here, because I'm looking at my illustrious colleagues who are going to be talking later, and I thought, wow, they've really achieved things. I'm not sure I have. So I'm going to hopefully do something inspiring about some things I try to do to support other women. So what I'm going to do is just talk very briefly about how I've got to the role I'm in now, and I won't bore you with it, I promise. Oh, I've gone the wrong way, sorry. I talk about later by being an authentic leader, by showing when you're not slick and you're not perfect. I've just started that off really well there. So I started my first proper job was here at the University of Plymouth, and I was departmental manager of the School of Mathematics and Statistics. Quite hard to pronounce that. So I was reflecting, did I enjoy my life during that period? And I did. I was young. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have children. And I had a great time, and I did work really hard, and I enjoyed myself too. And the people that, as you know, I've come back here, the people I enjoyed myself with, I found I'm still working with them, so they get hush money fairly often too. So I did have a good time, and it was. I spent 5 years here, and I think looking back on it, it was a great grounding for me. I really learnt my trade, And then I hot-footed it off to Surrey to work at Royal Holloway. And there's some pictures of that glorious building. It is the most incredible building, and it's used for a lot of filming. So there's things like Downton Abbey's been filmed there. A low point was Basic Instinct 2, which I would say. And the worst thing about that film is that the shot of Royal Holloway building is right at the very end, so you have to endure the most shocking film known to man. But we did have Sharon Stone behaving like an utter diva when she was there, so it was hilarious. But I had 6 roles at Royal Holloway, and I suppose I progressed my career there. And I started off as departmental manager in history department, and then moved my way up through academic quality assurance and management. And I was just reflecting on the time when I sort of got to that point in being departmental manager in history, which I absolutely loved. It was probably the job I enjoyed the most, actually. What was my next stage? I had a kind of opportunity. The opportunity came to be assistant registrar to deal with academic quality assurance, Laura. And you may be surprised to hear this, Laura, but my instinct was like, academic quality assurance? Oh my goodness, who on earth would want to do that? As you know, Laura does manage in this area. So I made the decision to go for it, and I never regretted it, because I learned it was a very broad role, and I learned a lot about academic quality assurance, which actually was the footing up to the next stage of my career. And had I not gone that route, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. So I think the lesson for me was that just because a job doesn't look like the thing you desperately want to do, it's not perfectly suited to you, but it's an opportunity. Really give it consideration and take it. Because even if it's something you don't enjoy for a year, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute, you don't enjoy it, you get so much from it. You always learn something from a role that you do. So leaping ahead, I became academic registrar. I did that for 5 years at Royal Holloway, and then I had the, I could say, fortune or misfortune. So there was a restructure because a new chief operating officer came in, and he wanted a new structure. So he changed my area and created a new role for me as Director of Legal and Governance and Deputy University Secretary. Longest title I've ever had, and probably one in the university sector. And I really didn't particularly enjoy it, because I'm more focused on people. I love working with people. I love working with a big operation and sort of leaping around and trying to organise things, and feeling that we can move a function and make a real added value to an organisation, the way it operates. So it wasn't really suited to me. So it was a lot about reading bylaws and lots of in-depth reading, and then advising the Board of Governors on particular bylaws. It wasn't really me. And the other area I looked after was health and safety. It wasn't really me, but I did actually gain a lot from it. And as a result of having had that experience, it actually enabled me to get my current job. So again, I'm sort of thinking, well, I'm looking back on it, though I didn't particularly enjoy it, it did give me some experience and something to put in my CV, and I did learn from it. So it was a good thing. So that was my 20 years in Royal Holloway, and then I said, I'm back. Did you miss me? Probably not. So I've been academic registrar here for just over 5 years. It's been a real honour to come back, actually, and I've loved coming back to the University of Plymouth. And there's quite a lot of similarity between the two organisations in terms of culture. So I find Plymouth a very collegial institution. It's very friendly, and I find that we all want to do the best for the organisation, and I don't find many barriers in this university. In many other universities, that is the case. So what are my biggest learning points? And I thought I'd put this down. So I think, and actually, if you read management and leadership books, they often talk about changing institution as being your biggest learning point. And for me, my biggest learning point was, after having been at Royal Holloway for 20 years, to transfer back to the University of Plymouth. I thought, well, I kind of know the University of Plymouth, but of course I didn't, because 20 years later, it's a very different organisation. And I'd read the book saying you need to prepare for that change. You need to not put your foot wrong by making statements and drawing conclusions about an institution without really knowing it. And I still didn't get it right, and I still made a couple of massive faux pas. So I know it wasn't a great thing, but gosh, did I learn from that. I really learned that I had to reflect on how I come across, because no one knew me. And it was, apart from the ones that had been out drinking with me when I was about 23. So it was a huge lesson for me to change, to really reflect how I behave and what I say. Because when you're in a senior position, people do occasionally listen to you, and you'll be a bit careful what you say. So I think that was really important for me. The other thing I learned was that when I did a 360 appraisal, which a lot of people do at a certain point in their lives. And that was a moment when, and it goes on to the third point actually, the reflections from senior colleagues when I did it at Royal Holloway, where they weren't really aware that I did much around strategic thinking, or my profile wasn't very high. And is she just a doer? And I thought, God, I couldn't work any harder. How can they possibly think this? But then I thought, actually, that working hard thing, if you don't do it smartly, you can become invisible. And particularly if you're a woman, you can become invisible. And if you I watched male colleagues who perhaps you weren't giving so much support and dedication to their work and their staff, but they did a fantastic job walking up and down the corridors of power, speaking their speak. And they would actually get to more senior positions quicker because they played the game. So I learned from that just be a little bit careful about how you're coming across, and you have to be slightly selfish. You have to look after yourself, because if you're not performing right across the board in terms of managing up as well, you're not actually doing not just a disservice to yourself, you're doing disservice to the people you're supporting, because you're representing their area. So that was a big one. The next one is play the long game. And I had a great friend and mentor who was a dean of faculty at Royal Holloway, who was fabulous. And when I used to come in at times and say, oh my goodness, that person driving me around the bend, I can't believe they're here and doing all these things, and why have they made this terrible decision? And she would just say, for goodness sake, play the long game. And she was absolutely right, because that was wasted energy. I had no control over what these particular decisions were or how people were behaving outside my area. So it was just about to make the conscious decision not to allow it to impact on me, and do what I can do, what I can control. But that took me quite a long time to learn. The next one, work-life balance, is absolutely critical. And I learnt it the hard way. I got quite ill a couple of years ago. And I'm fairly certain it was because I just was massively overdoing it. So I was doing this incredibly demanding job and have young children. They both have special needs. And I look after a husband who's retired. Don't even get me started there. So I need a wife. I definitely need a wife. And that was a huge lesson to me, because actually I do no one any favours by making myself ill from working too hard. And it's very difficult to get that work-life balance right. But I try and do it. And one thing I'm really passionate about is making sure that I support particularly women with that balancing that, because it's a really difficult one to deal with. And the other thing I was going to mention to you was that which I experienced. I experienced no bias against women up until probably quite a senior role, and I think the glass ceiling has certainly risen, but it's still there. And I've seen senior women being really, really capable senior women being blocked for promotion by male colleagues. And the two women I can think of went off to be, one was a vice-chancellor elsewhere and one became a deputy vice-chancellor. So they were really impressive women. It doesn't happen a lot. It happens in pockets. So it was something that was a bit of a wake-up call to me to be aware that happened. And on the basis of that, I had a discussion with a guy I was chatting to a week or so ago, and he said, oh, goodness sake, when you lot get in power, look what you do. You really mess it up. And he made reference to a recently departed female prime minister. I won't give you any more hints. And I said, hang on a minute. So why are you referring to her gender? What there's rubbish male leaders. Well, why do you have to reference the fact that she's a woman? And it was a bit of a wake-up call, because it's still there. The fact is, and this is my great friend and mentor's fantastic, my favourite quote, and I'm going to leave this with you, and I've only got one more slide. I just leave that with you. It's my favourite quote. It's definitely my favourite quote. So what do I do? This is my final slide. What do I do to support women? So I think one of the things I'm really feel strongly about is if you get into a position where you have some influence, is that you give back. And it's one of the reasons why the Aurora programme for higher education was set up, because the woman who set it up, I was having lunch with her, and she said, because on a course she was running, and she said, I was 2/3 of the way down a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, and I was reading something, and it said the number of female vice chancellors had actually gone down. So it had gone from about 21% to 17%. She said, I just lost the plot at that point. And I have to say, we still have very low numbers. There's only 24% of vice chancellors are women. I'm absolutely honoured to work in a university that does have a female vice chancellor. So there's a lot to, and only 35% of MPs are female. So there is there's a lot to be done there. I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Yeah, so being authentic means being shown when you can't remember what you were just about to talk about. So that whole business of feeling that there's a difference is that I want to make sure I give back, and there's a lot to be done for that. So what I find is that we do a lot, women, and I'm a classic example of this. We do self-limiting things. We have enough barriers to deal with anyway, with kind of traditionally often managing families and other caring responsibilities, where the unconscious bias activity and some of the things that can happen in the workplace. And then we self-limit on top of that. Well, I certainly have done. So you sort of think, look at CVs and job descriptions, and I think, oh, well, I can't really do that job. And then you find that someone else might look at it in quite a different way and say, well, I can't do 2/3 of that job, but I can do that third, so I'm definitely going to give it a shot. So we do self-limit. So my role in this as academic registrar is to give women a real chance to, and I do this in meetings. I make sure that women are always heard, that they have their voice. I really encourage that, because I think that's hard, and I've struggled with it as well. I really try and boost people's confidence, and I've tried to do mentoring as much as I can to help kind of remove those blocks that we put on ourselves and those self-limiting thoughts. And I'm always incredibly pleased when I've said I'm actually dealing with someone, I can't say who it was, and I'm encouraging them to apply for a job. And they've been out part-time working to raise their children. And she said, well, I think I'm a bit out of the game now. I don't really think I can do it. And I said, you absolutely can do it. I said, you 5 years ago, you went for this job and you would have been appointed. It was it was a very close decision. I said, just go for it, please, because you are fantastic. And it's brilliant, because a few days later, she said, no, I'm going to go for it, actually. And I said, look, all those doubts that you've got, you know it's in the toolkit. We just need to brush them off, and you'll be fine. And I'll work with this person. I'm mentoring her at the moment to support her in that job. So that's the thing I suppose I get most joy out of doing as in this position and in my role. And the final thing to say is to be authentic. And I've kind of demonstrated that already. That I don't want to come across as someone who's perfect. I'm absolutely not, and I struggle with so many different things around juggling family. I don't get things right. I don't always produce slick presentations. I'm sometimes late producing slides for Laura. He was frantically messaging me last night, thinking, "Are you just going to produce these slides?" Yes, I am, Laura. So I think that's really important. So I just wanted to say, fantastic to see you all here. It's a wonderful day to celebrate the extraordinary contribution that women make in all walks of life. But I think, Laura, you picked up, and I think so did Judith, is the women add a particular dimension into the way people work and the way organisation works, and we couldn't work without it. And I see some great contributions from women who have enormous emotional intelligence and can tread some very difficult paths. So celebration to you all. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. That was great. We'll save questions until the end, and we can field them to all the speakers. So if I could have Shehany.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Happy International Women's Day! Woo! So thank you, Laura, for having me, and Amy as well. I don't know if she's here today. Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, my name is Shehany. I'm a medical student currently in my clinical years. I'm the president of Student Action for Refugees, and I sit on the board of trustees for Refugee Support Devon. And there's a bunch of other things I do, like I'm part of the Equal Access Activist Group, where we campaign nationally for policy changes and campaign against human rights violations, things like that. But yeah, there's lots of other things that I do. I'm not going to bore you with all the things that I have done. But yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm an inspirational person, but maybe my story might inspire you. So here I go. I don't have any slides. It's just me talking, so apologies. So yeah, you're probably thinking, why is Shehany so passionate about refugee issues, human rights, women's rights? Well, that's because I'm actually a refugee from Sri Lanka, and came to the UK back in 2007 at the age of 10. And believe it or not, actually spent 15 years going through the asylum process. So it took a long time. And the whole process is not easy. You kind of get located anywhere and everywhere. You don't get a say in where you live. So I have lived in London, Cardiff, Gloucestershire, and finally Plymouth. So, and also when you're an asylum seeker, you get a tiny amount of money to survive. So I remember we got £37.50 to survive. That was per week. So it was so difficult. But because I was 10 when I came here, I had a pretty nice life. I'm quite optimistic, happy child. So went through the whole schooling process. Did all that, felt quite normal. It was not until everyone started applying for university, that's when I realized, ooh, I am different. I'm not like everybody else. And this was because asylum seekers are not allowed to, we are allowed to attend university, but we're classed as international students. And the fees are quite high. We're not eligible for student finance either. So I was not able to apply to university. So I was at home for about 5 years after completing my A-levels. And it was a really difficult time for me because I watched all my friends go off to university. I watched them graduate, get jobs, get on with their lives, and I was stuck at home. And when you're going through the asylum process, you're not allowed to work. Work is prohibited. Even some forms of volunteering is also prohibited. So it was quite restricting. So that was periods of depression, bit of anxiety, feeling a bit sorry for myself. So that was really hard. And I think we talk about the pre-migration trauma quite a lot. So obviously going through persecution, violence, whatever you face back home is difficult. But what we don't talk about enough is the post-migration trauma that people experience. And I think for me, the post-migration trauma was worse because of all the years of waiting that I had to do to get my status, and all the years that I had to wait to go to university and not feeling included. That was quite difficult. But anyways, so I was feeling a bit sorry for myself and a bit depressed. And then one day I just thought, Shehany, get up, do something for yourself. So I had a little chat with myself and said, okay, you know what? I think I can do something. So I got up and I applied to lots of volunteering jobs and started my volunteering journey. So then I worked at various charity shops, volunteered at the Refugee Council. And then this led me to speak at the House of Parliament on women's rights, female empowerment, on International Women's Day, and then ended up collaborating on a book on women's rights and things. So yeah, it opened up lots of doors for me. And for once in my life, I felt like I belonged and I had a sense of purpose. I think as humans, we all need a sense of purpose in life. And I think at that time I needed that. And I'm so glad that I had a chat with myself and got out of my kind of comfort zone and did that. Because I think it's so easy for us to kind of be trapped in your little bubble. So getting out there is so, so, so important. So I was doing all that while going through the Home Office asylum process, constant rejections, deportation orders. So my family and I got a flight tickets even sent to our house to go back the following week. So we packed up all ready to and waiting for the Home Office van to come and take us. For some reason, I don't know, it was a miracle or something, but it just never turned up. The Home Office van just never turned up. So we were like, what are we going to do now? And then our solicitor said, maybe you can apply for another fresh claim, do a fresh claim. So we did that, and then our case went to High Court of Human Rights. And again, lots of rejections, lots of court hearings, things like that. And then the Home Office decided to move us from Gloucestershire to Plymouth. And we lived in Gloucester for 11 years, so that was pretty difficult to leave there. We had all our friends, family, everyone there, but we had no choice. So I came to Plymouth, and I was thinking, where is Plymouth? I never heard of it. And then had a little Google, and I saw Plymouth at the bottom of the map. And then the Home Office said, well, it's in the southwest, it's close to Gloucester. You guys can you can travel and go and see your friends. And thought, okay. So I looked up the coaches. It's actually 6 hours. So like, no way we're going back. So again, that was difficult moving to Plymouth, but being the optimistic person that I am, tried to integrate into the community again, started volunteering, doing lots of other things. And then during that time, that's when I was finally granted 2.5-year visa on the basis that I've been in the UK for over half my life. And I was like, finally I have a visa. I can stay here. I was really happy. And then I thought, maybe I could apply to university. So got really excited, started looking at uni options, and applied. And luckily I got in. So growing up, always wanted to be a doctor. That's always been my dream. It's because my parents are also doctors back in Sri Lanka, so grew up around them, doing their medical clinics and things, and I was so inspired. That was just my dream. So applied, I got in, and I was so happy. But then there was more barriers. So I realized I can't actually get student finance. My application was rejected, unfortunately, and the university classed me as an international student. So for medicine, I believe it's £40,000 a year, and it's a 5-year degree. So there was no way I could afford that. So I was thinking, what am I going to do? And then I thought, maybe Google might help me. So again, went on Google, had a little browse, and then I thought, maybe if I can find a scholarship, maybe that might open up a door for me. So I had a look. There was lots of scholarships for other degrees, but none for medicine. And then I looked and actually found one, which is called the Westheimer Scholarship. It's administered by, I think, the Medical Schools Council in the UK. Applied, and I looked at the stats. I think they had like 200 applicants per year, and only 2 people get this scholarship per year from the UK. And I thought, okay, maybe it's worth a try. Let me apply, maybe test my luck. And I had lots of volunteer experience under my belt, so I thought I had a strong application. I applied, got an interview. I was amazed, and then I got the scholarship, so I was so pleased. Thank you. So I was thinking, finally all my problems have been solved. I could go to university, become a doctor, maybe serve the community and give back everything. And then I again found out that the scholarship will only pay home fees, not international fees. I was like, oh no. So now I had the job of convincing the uni to class me as a home student. So I don't know if you guys know Rosie Brennan. If you know her, you'd know that she is one of the most inspirational people ever, and she is the reason why I'm at university now and doing what I'm doing. So I went to Rosie because she's the director at the law clinic. I said, Rosie, please help. I need to get a fee waiver somehow. I need to go to university. I got this scholarship, and she was like, yes, I will help you. Let's get all your documents together. Let's fight for this. So she said, because you've been here for over half your life, we could potentially fight for that. So we tried. Student services told me to withdraw my application and work and earn the money for international fees and come back. I didn't think that was an option. And then admissions team refused as well. And then we just kept going. Rosie didn't give up. We just kept going and went to the higher ups, and they finally granted me my fee waiver, which was, incredible. One of the best days of my life, because I had got my scholarship sorted, my medical school place, I got my home fee status. So I thought, okay, I am in now. And that's how my journey kind of began. And here I am. Now that kind of got my life together, I want to give back. So I've founded Student Action for Refugees, which is a society that helps refugees like myself access higher education. So we campaign for access to higher education. We help students with the application process. We advocate for policy changes locally and nationally. And I sit on the advisory board for Refugee Education UK, which is another amazing charity in the UK that helps refugees. So what I kind of want to tell you guys is sometimes in life, there's obstacles, but don't give up. There's always a way. You need to just have that chat with yourself, get up and say, I can do it. Every time you feel excluded, include yourself. Don't ever feel like you're an outsider. Include yourself, because there'll be lots of doors that will open up for you. If I didn't do the voluntary work that I did, I don't think I would have got the scholarship. And if I didn't do the work that I did, I don't think I would have got my place in med school. So there's a reason why everything happens. So just that positive outlook is so important. So that's kind of my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Shehany. That really was inspirational. Absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the next speaker, which is Melissa.
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be back. I graduated in 2022 from English and Publishing. It's really great to be back in Plymouth. My name's Melissa. I am the founder and director of We Are Disgraceful CIC. For those of you who don't know the magazine, we are a non-profit publication and online community that sets out to support and inspire women kind of do whatever they want to, from breaking down kind of career barriers to writing to telling their stories. We're a bit of a jack of all trades, supporting women kind of create their path in their careers. So in terms of why I started the magazine, I'm going to go back to the beginning and tell you my story. So when I started university in 2019, I was shy, I had zero confidence and absolutely no belief in myself or my ability. At the time, I was in a long, emotionally and physically abusive relationship, and it's quite safe to say there was the absolute shell of the person I am today. I was constantly told that what I was doing and trying to achieve wasn't good enough, and I didn't have any belief that I could do or be anything significant. But then lockdown hit, and while it was tricky to navigate university in that time, the pandemic put a stop to many of the in-person opportunities I had lined up, a lot of volunteering things I wanted to do. It also opened the door to things that, in hindsight, were much more valuable. So lockdown did give me the distance to finally leave the relationship I was in. And after I left, I started to use a lot of my time to start writing about my experiences. Now, I've always loved writing. I would force my parents as a kid to listen to my really bad poems. And then I had a blog as a teenager where I would spill all my secrets in, and reading that back now would be absolutely embarrassing. But I found quite a cathartic amount of joy in writing authentically and sharing my experiences online. And this was only amplified when the women who I started to read my work found it immensely relatable as well. So I'm not kidding when I say Disgraceful was formed from an idea I had in a lockdown queue for Tesco. I say this a lot when I'm talking about the magazine, and it is literally true. I was waiting to get into the shop and it did come to me. But I had started to kind of see a lot of people really relate to what I was writing about online. And I decided I wanted to take these small wins and the things I was able to achieve with my Instagram blog and multiply it tenfold. So I decided I wanted to create a platform where women could write whatever they wanted, where they could find their voices, be inquisitive, and empower other women to do the same. It's quite a vulnerable thing to start sharing and talking about your experiences online. And when I said to people, did you want to join this magazine? It was a big ask, and it was a big ask for people to open up and want to trust me with their words. But somehow it paid off and people trusted me. So that was really, really amazing. And as I discovered in my abusive relationship, when you were told or you read or you hear something over and over again, it's really easy to convince yourself it's the truth. And when you're in that headspace, it's really, really hard to get out of it. So I figured if enough women could come together to spread hope and ignite inspiration through sharing their experiences of their own, through sharing their success stories and the paths that they've traveled, more women might find the courage to live unapologetically as well. So after a quick post on LinkedIn, simply asking my network if they wanted to get involved, that morning I went to work, and within 2 hours I had hundreds of emails from people who wanted to be a part of this magazine, which was absolutely insane. We had our first meeting on Zoom, and at this point I had absolutely no experience in leading anything. I was stacking shelves in co-op, and I was completely out of my league in terms of what to do. I had never spoken to more than a few people in the room. I was shy. I hated talking in front of people. But we got on this Zoom with over 40 women. We had to turn so many people away because I was like, I cannot do this. And the magazine kind of came to life. And in December 2020, we launched our first issue. The day that issue came through, and we had a whole team of designing it, people were writing it. We had about 150 articles in this first issue, which was insane. It came through, and it was such a surreal moment to see this magazine, and people loved it. It thousands of downloads, people wanting to read more. So we decided to print it. And I have to tell you, it was a really, really funny but surreal moment when over hundreds of these magazines turned up at my student house in Mutley, and I'm having to take them off the lorry, and it's busy, and I have no idea what to do with them. I didn't have a car at the time. I wrote my housemates into packing all these orders and sending them to the post office with me. We were going backwards and forwards all day. But it was amazing, and it was really, really worth it. So why the name Disgraceful? Throughout history, women have been called disgraceful for being too confident, for being too expressive or loud, for feeling sexual, liberated and independent. It's a word that has been synonymous with actions that don't align with societal stereotypes. And it's a word to describe women who essentially refuse to confine to what we've been told we've got to do for centuries. And that's exactly why we use it. We wanted to call it something that kind of reclaimed this vision that we should have been all this time. And we have had a lot of people who have responded quite badly to it. But also on the flip side of that, a lot of people who absolutely love it. So it's definitely paid off, and it's one that sticks too. So it has been nearly 3.5 years since we launched our first issue. And in the last few years, we have printed and published hundreds of articles from women who have a story to tell. We have a voluntary team of over 40 of us. We've created in-house training programs. We became a CIC so we can support women kind of further. I've been invited to movie premieres. I've walked red carpets, things that me from Devon would never, ever think that would be possible. And, we've published 12 issues in print. We've published helpful anthologies. We've recently, in September of last year, launched a brand new website to kind of keep up with the curve of people consuming things. And I've been interviewed by the BBC. We've spoken on podcasts, been to massive conferences and doing stuff like this. But out of all those achievements, which I can, I would never take for granted for, but the most important thing for me is that I've been able to give a platform to women who have something to say. And when people come to the magazine and because they've read something that's really inspired them, it's a really amazing thing to watch people transform themselves as writers, but also just as people. Many of the people who write for us have never written anything in their lives, and to be able to work with them to create a story that they've been wanting to tell for ages is a really magical moment. And kind of one of the most poignant things for me in terms of storytelling, we in the response to the murder of Sarah Everard a few years ago, we published an anthology called Unspoken. And it was created in response to the national movement. And it was for the 97% of women who had experienced sexual assault of some kind. We had women submitting stories to us anonymously, but also some who'd wanted to kind of share their name as well. And it was published alongside a toolkit of resources to help women find their voices and share their experiences too. And watching that come together is probably one of the highlights of my career so far. Just these women trusted me and my publication with the vulnerability of sharing their stories. And it was absolutely incredible. And every woman, I started this by saying, kind of referring to my own abusive relationship. And until that moment, I had never told anybody. And so even for me, doing this and giving other people a platform, it's inspired me to use it as well. So, and to accompany the release of the anthology, we encouraged our audience to share their stories. We had an amazing campaign alongside it where every issue that was bought, we sent out the reader like a booklet of seeded paper, which encouraged our users or our readers to write down their own stories and plant them and then watch them grow into something a bit more special, which was really, really lovely to see. And yeah, because obviously we're a CIC, we're completely non-profit, and all donations from that were donated to Women's Aid. And that's something that's really important to me. I work full time alongside the magazine. Nothing's perfect and everything's a little bit rugged. But for me, it's not about the money. It's not about the business side of things. And the amount of times people have said to me, you should probably think of this a bit better, think of this a bit more. But, it's about helping people. And that was what we continue to do. And that really was the backbone of us becoming a CIC. So... and with that in mind, I think that's what has ensured Disgraceful success. And I think we have loads of readers across the globe, which is insane. But it's what's so special is that mutual appreciation from every woman involved, that it's like the space and time to be expressive. And, censorship does not exist. We only ever edit articles for grammar, spelling and clarity, which goes against so many kind of journalism 101s. But it was really important for us, for our readers and writers to trust us to publish words that were their unfiltered experiences. Vogue and all the big magazines you see, they share experiences of their own, but they're always not that relatable. Because even though they try and be relatable, they're never really just real people telling their stories. And that was what we try to do and continue to try to do. So today, fast forward to today, 3.5 years later, it's been a wild ride, but we no longer print our issues. When we started, it was lockdown and everyone had loads of time to kill to scroll through printed or downloaded kind of editions, and it was fine. But now, short form videos on the rise, people are wanting quick and easy content. So last year in September, we launched our new website. And then that became the fundamentals of becoming a CIC and working with students and doing things like this to help people and writers or graduates or students to find their voices and start creating their own narratives online. In 2024, we are busy. We are embarking on a long road of kind of funding applications, community outreach, and we're looking at ways we can kind of level up our kind of content process. We've had to adapt and change significantly over the last 4 years, and I have no doubt it's going to be the same this year. Things don't always go right, and people always say to me, well, how do you do it all? I have no idea. I don't half the time. Everything that we've done so far, I couldn't be here without my amazing team beside me and the people who support me. But also it's never as glossy as social media makes it seem. And that's not always because we're underprepared and unorganized, although sometimes we definitely are. But the journalism landscape is so unreliable. Mainstream media is governed by clicks, views and engagements. And But for us, the analytics don't mean anything. While we know our audience sizes and the number of women on our mailing list, for us, we prefer to measure success based on the impact our content has by the people who come to us and say, that really inspired me to do something. And, you know, our Instagram inbox and our email inbox is always full of women saying, I read this article and I want to say something similar. And that's like a really great moment because we're encouraging people who, and they always say, I've never written anything in my life, but we have the processes in-house to be able to support them to do so. So yeah, if one woman just reaches out and says, hey, thank you for sharing that story, that's a job well done to us. And that's kind of our main value throughout the whole kind of company. And for everyone who works with us, that's what we say. And that sentiment is reflected in our values and why we are a CIC. So I think kind of leaving you with one thing, like finding your voice and the courage to tell a story is one of the most powerful things you can do. And I will forever scream about that, hands down. You have total ownership over the words you write, when it does feel as a woman, sometimes you don't have ownership over many things in your lives. And when you're retelling your experiences of hardship, or when you're telling someone how you went down a certain path, that can be really freeing to see that in print and to see the effect that it has. I have big plans for Disgraceful for the next few years and for the next kind of after that. And hopefully we can keep telling great content and keep sharing great content. But yeah, that's my story.
Thanks, Melissa. That was great. I love the name Disgraceful, and I'm going to adopt that when I describe myself from now on, I think, most definitely. So if we could have Liliane up next, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Good morning. Happy International Women's Day. And I was like seated there and thinking, oh my goodness, after all this inspiring women talking about their lives and talking about how amazing the impact of their work within not only the region but internationally, that is really, really inspiring. And I feel like having an International Women's Day just on the 8th of March, I feel like it's a little bit, I wish we can celebrate each other each and every day. And I think that is something that I really, is my motto. My motto is inspiring the person that I'm next, inspiring the person that I live with, inspiring my daughters, inspiring my neighbors. And I think that makes me who I am. So my name is Liliane Uwimana, and I come from Rwanda. Rwanda, I think you know it because it's in the news. It's where the politicians are fighting. But I don't want you to think about that. I want you to look at me and see me as a person who's talking to you and who have a story. I came to the UK in 2005. So I've been here for quite a while. I came to join my husband who was living here. So my journey wasn't as much as Shehany was speaking, and I know there's so many women like me who have gone through the asylum system, and I know how hard it is. But I was fortunate that I didn't go through that because I came as family reunion, and it's a bit different. So when I came, I had my 2 boys, and now I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. And in 2000, so I studied in here at Plymouth University, like twice in different ways. I think at one point I just did have this aha moment because I know if you know Rwanda, you know the history of Rwanda. There was a genocide in Rwanda, and some of my family perished during the genocide. And I always had this eager to think about how the mindset of a human being think. How can you just wake up in the morning and kill your neighbor or kill your wife or kill your husband? Anyway, that is the long story. And I thought I would do psychology and learn a little bit about the mind of a human being. And that wasn't the right choice because I went in and 2 years in and I was like, nah, it was messing my mind up down and helping me. And I kind of one day left the lecture and never came back. And I had 4 years of recovering from that and thinking, where was my life will go? Because I thought, I'm not going to be a psychologist. I don't think it's something that I will do and enjoy. And I have a long think, and I thought to myself, what is it that I want to do and I want to have an impact in? Then after 4 years of thinking, I thought business management, business was something that I wanted to do. And I lifted up a call and I called Plymouth University, and I think I've called the Department of Business, and I spoke to someone called Mike Leet. It was the one who was he was looking after the business school, and he was an amazing man. And he said, Liliane, I know you left university without saying a thing, and I know you want to come back, but there is a way. So anyway, cut the story short, I went back to university and I did my degree in business management, and I focus on human resources. And that was something that I felt like I was going to do and I was going to strive in. And after, I think in my second year, I felt pregnant of my fourth child, which wasn't really planned, but hey ho, he was there. And yes, I took a year gap and then I came back. But in all that, I'm saying this story to tell, to talk about how women, we kind of juggle so many things. We don't only juggle our career, but we juggle family. And then in that, you are thinking, what am I going to do to be able to give back or to impact? I think Shehany's story just made me realize, as young as she is, she still, and the things that she went through, she still thinks about giving back. And I think that is the power of a woman. A woman will go through what they go through, but when they wake up, they will want to give back and they will want to do something for others. So I finished my degree in 2020, just as the lockdown was starting. So I was one of those students who did that dissertation at home, and it was hard. I had a toddler and I have other children, so it was hard. But anyway, I finished my degree, which was good. And then I went on to join my husband. My husband is managing director of DBI. And I'm saying that as a disclaimer because what we do is something that is a bit different. So we support businesses from the Black and Asian minority, and we support them not only to strive, but we support them to have that visibility. And I believe that inclusion happens when you belong somewhere. Inclusion happens when you have a voice, and inclusion happens when you are on the table, when decisions are made. So sometimes as a woman, but as a woman from an African descendant, as a Black woman, most of the time I'm not represented in many things. So as we speak about inclusion, I'm just reminding myself, it's good that women, we have done so much already, especially in this country. There's so much that has been done, but there is still more to do. So for someone like me, sitting somewhere where I know I can see there is people looking like me are not many or maybe not, then I know that what I go through, no one will talk about it. And that is natural. It's not a blame. It's not something that you put on others, but really, voice of women need to be heard and the representation need to be there. And we still have a long way to go. So as I went in to work with the Diversity Business Incubator, as I finished my degree and I was doing the human relation, there was a need of women entrepreneurs who were coming to us thinking, what are we going to do with our creation? So women come in this country and they come with different skills. So we had women who have done law, we have women who have done engineering, but they wanted to share something from their culture and they wanted to share food, to share something that just will make sure that people know where they come from. And I think Jabulani is not, Jabulani is part of this. So we had a thought of creating a space for women, women who are entrepreneurs, but they didn't know they were entrepreneurs. But because when they come to us, they say, we know how to cook, we know how to interact with people, but we don't know how to do it as a business. As a fresh graduate, I was like, that is a something that I can take on. And so then I went to manage the food court that we have down in Stonehouse, which is in the plot, which we work with Nudge. And we took the back of this space because we wanted to create a space where women can come and exhibit what they can in terms of food. But again, we wanted to create that space so that they can be able to see the gift that they have and to see the gift of entrepreneurship. And that's how really Jabulani started. And from lockdown, I think we started in 2019, and then the idea was there, and then it was going to be born as the lockdown started, and then the idea again went on the back burner. But we had a really urgent feeling of knowing that this was an idea that was needed in the city. And in our mind, we thought it was just supporting entrepreneurs. We didn't know that what we were creating was something that the city really needed. The city really needed to see that people can come from different places around the world, but they can be united by something that is really the core. For us was food, but there was that visibility as well. So people, when they come to Jabulani, they come for the good smell, the good food, but when they leave knowing that there was a lady there who come from Ethiopia and she does an amazing kind of cooking, but they learn a little bit about her. There is a lady from Congo, there is a lady from Cameroon, there is a lady from Rwanda, there is ladies that are there who are coming from different places of the world. Yes, they are cooking, but there's more to that. And suddenly it became a place where people come and find culture, find diversity, find women who are striving and are doing better. So for me, I feel like this theme of inspiring inclusion, we need to sit back and think, how do we inspire inclusion in our day-to-day life? For me, I feel that what I do inspires inclusion because I work with women who come from most where I come from, but we don't have any barrier of having other women among us. We inspire that inclusion, but we really included in other things. So today, as we are here at the Plymouth University where I studied, where I gained the knowledge that I'm carrying today, I'm reminded that there is voices that need to be here and need to be heard. And if my voice is here and you can hear me, I'm saying inclusion will only be achieved when there is representation. And we need to really feel like, how do we have the representation? I think it's when you have the courage to go a little bit further, look at the place where you are and think, yes, we are here, but do we have all the voices here? Can we allow other people to come and can we hear about what they do? And I think that is something that's gonna move us forward. Yesterday, we had a little gathering in Jabulani with women from all walk of life. We had like 15 women, and most of them were entrepreneurs from the communities that we represent, but again, from the wider community. And it was so good to hear their story because what is striking is that women have similar stories. We all have similar stories. It might sound a little bit different because of where we come from, but we all have similar stories. And looking at these entrepreneurs who have started their ideas just because someone told them that you can't do this, you can't do that. And then who are you to tell me that I can't do this? And then they get to a place where they say, actually, I will do it. And they were there, they were telling a story of amazing things that they have done. And I was seated and I was saying, oh my goodness, these are voices of women who are talking about things that they have done, taking them out of their comfort zone, striving, stressing every day. And it just made me feel so good. It made me feel so good and made me feel like if we have 15 women here who are talking about this, and then I knew that the next day I would be here talking to you as well, I thought the work that we're doing is progressive and it's taking one step at a time. And I hope that in 10 years from now, when we look back and looking at this theme that have gone through the International Women's Day, we start seeing the differences that they're making. I do something else which is really interesting. I am a founder of Girls to Women. Girls to Women is something that is dear to my heart. I started it just on top of my head. I was thinking I have a very hard upbringing. My mom was a strong woman, but I think where she was and how she lived made her become silent for a long time. So I've never seen her speak out and be able to emancipate to the woman that she was. And consequently, because she was my mom, of course, I looked at her and she was the mirror that I was looking in. So I was silent for so many years. And as I was hitting my 40, I'm not trying to tell you to guess my age, but I thought, something about me is different and I need to embrace it. And I embrace it. But I thought, if I'm embracing it, it means that there is another girl who might be like me. There is a young girl. I told you I have 2 daughters. There is another young girl who will be wanting someone to inspire her. So Girls to Women came from a thought of mine, looking at my own self when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, and looking at how I didn't have a voice, how I didn't think I was worth anything, how suddenly now that I have taken the courage and started to have a voice and seeing the impact, I thought maybe if other women like me can do similar things, maybe we will have less girls who are struggling. That's how Girls to Women started. And I started to listen to young girls. I started to give them time, not only looking at me, where I come from. If there is girls in my community, they'll call me auntie or they will call me Mama Liliane. They will never call me by my name because that is culture. But I didn't want that barrier to be something that will not make them feel worth and feel the precious thing that they have in them. I started to listen. I started to give them a space. And that is really how Girls to Women started. Girls to Women, I feel like, is a movement. It's not something that is stagnant. Every woman here can be part of Girls to Women. If you have a young girl who's near you, please listen to them. Please see them, because that is what they need. And in the wake of how social media is impacting our girls, how about we can impact our girls? How about we can tell them how amazing they are? How about we can tell them that they are worthy and they have a voice within them? So I started that, and it's been now 3 years, I think, on and off. I kind of do it in my time because I feel like it's a movement that can grow and become something amazing. But I feel like if we do one girl at a time, that will be better than having arena full of people or having conferences that people come and go. So I started to do that intentionally. And I'm so pleased that there is so many girls that I spoke to, and there's so many girls that I see doing incredible stuff, because they've been listened to and they've been felt like they are heard and they are valued. So I will finish by this. Race for equality will require work, and we need to make sure that we work for it. If I'm here today, it's because I had the courage to start something that was a bit radical. But I think as we go forward, as a big institution as Plymouth University or other places within Plymouth, we need to make sure that there is voices of these women that are not here today, that are heard. And if we hear them, if we know them, if we know the treasure that they have within them, the culture they hold, the experiences. Shehany spoke about her experiences, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she can be everything she wants, not just a medical doctor. She can be everything because of the resilience that she holds. And I feel like there is so many women who hold that resilience but don't have a place to speak, or don't have the voice, or don't have those tables to be on. So let us come out of looking just at what we see, what is normal, let us just have the courage to look up and to say, who's not here? Can we hear their voice as well? Can we see why they're struggling? Can we see what we can do so that we can embrace this inclusion? And yesterday I was reminded that actually the UN, the theme of this year for the UN is invest in women. And I was like, wow, that's good. Let's see how they may invest in women, and let's see how we may see entrepreneurs that are in Jabulani right now making their living out of their skills. And let's see how Plymouth University will keep inspiring girls. Let's see how, Laura, thank you so much for having me, how this movement within the Plymouth University will just be a landscape of seeing women from all walk of life, for all colors, all whatever they represent, be here and being included in such a day like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliane. That was amazing. And I think that there are some really strong themes that are kind of coming out of this, like a sense of belonging and sort of finding a voice, really, really important. I think what we're going to do now is move on to our Q&A session, because I'm sure you've probably got a lot of questions and there's a lot of thoughts and discussion.
Thank you very much. I think it's fair to say that when you speak about the Syrian women, I feel like they're my sisters in terms of what they've gone through and what still they're going through. The message that I can give them, as me personally, is stay in the community. I think when you are in a community where you see not only survival, but you see the will to live so that you can keep going, or maybe not only tell your story, but survive for your children, for your family. Community is important. It has been important for me. And as soon as I started to think that there was more to community gave me more. And I think if there is a society, or if there is somewhere where these women meet, I'll be really pleased to know. Then, I can go there and tell, time will come where this will be stories that we'll be telling, but there is hope, because you're still here, because you survived, because you are here. So you can do something for yourself without forgetting your root. Actually, you can bring your root here. And though your root can be a gift for where you are, because that is what we do. We are here, and you feel that sense of belonging, and you bring the gift that is you, which is your culture, which is who you are, and you give it back to the community. And I'm telling you, the community receive it with both hands. So yeah, I think that is what I can say to them.
Thank you for that question. I feel like I can somewhat relate, because I'm someone who had to move away from where I lived for a number of years. I think my advice would be include yourself, step out of your comfort zone, get involved. I feel like integration is so important to, like Liliane said, to find your purpose, to kind of know that you are welcomed, and kind of want them to know that they are welcomed here and they're loved and we appreciate them. I think everyone has so much to offer. And I just want to encourage them to step out of the comfort zone, be included, don't exclude yourself, integrate. Integration is important as well. So yeah.
Just to add to that, I think in terms of, for what we do in terms of sharing other people's stories, and it's a really, really vulnerable thing, as I said, to be willing to talk about your experiences. But there's a lot of kind of power in, even if you're writing for yourself, and just kind of sharing that and putting that on paper. So I'll connect with you afterwards. It'll be really interesting if anyone wants to kind of speak about what they've been through, or what they're going through, and the kind of the experience of being here and kind of transforming. That'd be really, really great.
I feel it's incredibly unqualified to answer that question, because my panelists, my colleagues here have spoken with such passion and lived experience. I think there's extraordinary amounts of goodwill towards people, but it's only given if people ask, and it's the fact that you raised it. It's the fact we all drift away in our own little lives. We're not aware of what's really going on and what their lived experience is. So those connections that you have worked with, and you creating those bubbles to have those connections, so people feel that they can talk about it and in an open way and feel confident to be able to speak. Yeah, and it's just giving that voice, isn't it? Which is wonderful. I think it's interesting. You're obviously making a lot of contacts, and you're working with Judith to find out, there's where we can do something. I'm sure there's something we can do in the Students' Union. I'm sure they have a role to play in this, and so do our Student Services Department. I think it's a lesson for me to go back and just ask quite what we're doing as an organisation about it. So thank you, but I do feel very unqualified. I have to say, I see. I'm not an academic, but I was really, really taken back when I joined the Aurora program, and as a mentor, and I went to the sessions in the Aurora program, which is set up for women it's for women at a mid stage in their careers, and I was completely shocked at how many female academics like you were talking about their position and what they'd experienced, and that was a story I heard a lot, and I was genuinely shocked because I thought it was professional services that felt it, and I think actually the academic community it's more rife. I think it's even more severe. And I think you can just look at the number of senior women we have at in the executive level of universities. The fact that wherever it is, 24% of vice chancellors are female. If you look at the makeup of the executive teams, they tend to be predominantly male. And if a woman is there, they tend to do the unsexy bit of teaching, which I think is fantastic. I don't know why you want to do that bit, but the kind of research, the kind of high-profile activities tend to be male. So I think there's a worse problem for women in academic roles than there are even for professional services. So I do think there's an issue. Do I think the university's taking it seriously and doing something about it? I do think it is taken seriously, and I do think there are people like Deborah, there are people who've got and Laura, there are people who really are trying to do something. Obviously there is a committee to do it. Whether we're getting the voices, whether that message is really heard by people and that we're actually taking the right steps to make that possible for women to really succeed, I'm not sure. And if you look about it across every sector in this country, what we do to support women who are coming back from maternity leave, for example, or juggling careers, do we make enough changes? And Harriet Harmer was kind of driving this forward for many years. I don't think we've made enough steps, any remotely enough steps to be able to make that possible for women. I think women make enormous sacrifices to continue with their career. And I was listening to this morning on Radio 4. They're sort of, the government's in a complete state of panic because lots of people, particularly in the 50-plus age brackets, have stopped working. And I thought, well, there is look at that whole tapped resource of people who've perhaps spent time raising children who want to come back into the workplace, but what are you doing to allow those people to come back to the workplace? And it's nowhere near enough. We're not doing enough as a country. I think it's really poor. So I think this institution does care, and I think they do realise there's a lot of women who are, there's an enormous amount of talent that we could be using and supporting. I try to do my best within professional services, but I'm interested to see. I don't know if I want to put Deborah on the spot here, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on this. I do think we are. I think we've got somewhere to go. But I do think the institution cares. I think there are enough people that do care about it. But it's an awful story to hear when you hear it so often that has happened to people. So it's not a very satisfactory answer. Deborah, do you want to say anything? Have you got any thoughts on this? I might put you on the spot.
I think that's fine. Sorry. I think you're right. We do try and take it seriously, and it's always in our Athena Spawn plans. We have been very successful with female promotion. In fact, the last year we promoted more females than males for the first time. There is a lot more to do. That's not just in this university. It's recognised, isn't it, across the whole sector. So it would be great to talk to you and others, because one of the issues that we find, and I lead on EDI for staff, is getting those voices to come to us, and we haven't done enough to get out there either. So there's fault on both sides, but it's just about, if we could hear those voices and actually get more ideas from the people who are out there. And certainly I hear a lot more about research and the challenges there for people, early career researchers.
Well, the happiness staff surveys done.
Yeah.
University can't tend not to learn about this.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember whether anything was, whether there was a big enough voice in the last survey. I can go back and have a look at that. I should have to remind myself.
Do you have any other questions? Anna, I've got a question actually. When it comes to having a mentor, do you think that's quite important for sort of career development? Because like often the people sort of that I've talked to that have kind of gone through sort of like a trajectory of like leadership, they've nearly always had some sort of mentor. And I just, whether you think that's a really good thing to do and whether people should be seeking them out or...
I think it's absolutely essential. Yeah. Because and get someone who's prepared to tell you as it is, not that someone's going to be nice. My mentor came up with that my favourite quote. She was brutal with me. She used to be quiet, and but I knew it came from the right place, and because I only see things from my own vantage point, and actually hearing someone saying, "Well, this is how you're coming across. Why do you She said to me once, she said, why are you so obsessed with being liked?
Yeah.
I said, thanks for that. I said, I don't know. She said, stop trying to be liked. She said, just be good at what you're doing, and don't put so much effort on, because actually in the toolkit of being, as you develop your career, you have to be able to make hard decisions at times. You have to not always be popular. So that was, she'd say really tough things to me like that. So I've had coaching as well, and that really helps as well, because the mentor helps you work out where your deficiencies are. Well, you haven't got any, but mine. And
oh, no.
and then the coach helps you work out how you're going to deal with that deficiency. So it's really good.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else? I don't want to hog the mic. No? We can probably finish this section a little early then. It's not so bad. But I just want to say a massive thank you. Can I turn this towards me a little bit? A massive thank you to our speakers, because that was, a truly inspiring hour of listening to everyone's stories. And there's definitely very, very strong themes of, a sense of belonging being super important, and having a voice, and, kind of working together, I think. Just fantastic. I'll just speak more about it later as well. And just see. So, yes, thank you. Thank everyone for attending. I just want to say that if you are wearing purple today, like me, thank you. And please remember to donate £2 or whatever you can to our chosen charity, Gifted Women, who are in the corner now as we speak. We do have posters dotted around with QR codes that you can scan and pay and donate via PayPal, or we do have a small cash box at the registration desk if you've got a couple quid on you. We also have displays from Man Culture as well, who are going to be running a workshop later on. So please do take a moment to go and speak to them. And I think we've got a Unison rep table as well, and Melissa's got a table with some information on. So that's going to be happening today. And I don't know how you couldn't be aware of it, but if you're not aware of it, we have been collecting nominations for inspiring people, and all these posters are displayed across the wall. These are for both staff and students, and they are a pleasure to read. So please do take the opportunity to have a look at those. While I've got the mic as well, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everyone that helped me put this event together. Jess, Becky and Jessica, and for all those that are running the workshops, Amy, Hazel and Man Culture. Couldn't have done this event without you and all your support, and Alistair. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate you all for taking the time out of your busy days, because I know how busy everyone is at the moment. So now the fun bit, we should have cake and tea and coffee out in the hallway, and then we can do some informal networking, have a chat, and just generally get to know each other. So thank